Good evening and a warm welcome to Big Budget Business, where we aim to inspire young people in professional settings and business settings to be and do more than they already are. Today, we speak on the importance of image, the importance of activism, as well as the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement with image consultant, entrepreneur, and activist Shamil Tumisang Agosi. Shamil, thank you so much for lighting up our studios today.
No, thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure having you.
Indeed.
Wonderful.
Indeed, yes.
So let's start with a background. I'm sure a lot of people want to know who is Shamil, the individual. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Right, and so basically Shamil Agosi is a Mwaketse-born young lady. I was born in Kanye, where I was brought up by both my mom and my grandmother. Like many of youths out there, unfortunately, we had the ordeal of having to, go through our teenage years and all of that without the parents. My mom died when I was 11 years, and then my grandma died when I was 13 years. And so, by virtue, I had to be, a child parent to my younger siblings and all of that. So my upbringing is one that, well, I just basically survived on the values and principles that were imparted in me before the passing of my parents. And then later on now learned how to be a parent, how to be there for the next person. And, by virtue of all of that, you just learn to, consider other people before yourself, because you're a caretaker in this essence.
Absolutely.
And so that is basically how I was brought up. Grew up in a very loving family, but of course things changed once, like many other families. Once our grandmother, passed on, there was a lot of changes that we saw happening. Sure. Being an indigent as well, and having to learn how to navigate life by yourself without the 100% support of your extended family and all of that. But it taught me something in there. Okay. It taught me independence. It taught me how to fight for the things that I want. It taught me how to basically be the answer that I needed the most to the people that are around me. Wow. Yes.
Wow, thank you so much. Already, I take it you're quite the resilient individual because of how you said your upbringing made you very independent.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Yes. No, so we thank your grandmother and for everybody who's helped you become who you are today.
Indeed.
Let me remind our viewers that we are live, so please do post your comments in the section if you have anything that you'd like to ask our image consultant, activist, and entrepreneur, Shamil Tumisang Agosi. Please, when you comment, do let us know who you are and where you're commenting from. We'd really appreciate that. Now that we've spoken about you, the individual, tell us about Shamil, the image consultant. I did say that you lit up our studios today.
Thank you.
Tell us a bit about this image consultancy work.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So where basically all this started was I trained in marketing. Okay. And so the small time that I spent in corporate work, working for two companies, I would not mention by name right now, but then I learned that, there's so much more that I can do outside of the formal employment. And so what I decided was to set up my own branding and marketing consultancy once I left those jobs. And so for me, image, is just basically looking at the aspect of culture, the aspect of people, bringing all of these aspects together to contribute towards the total corporate brand. And so with that, then, there is something about my background actually that made me even believe so much in, in branding, in improving one's corporate image, and all of that. This is why, because, growing up as an indigent, growing up as an orphan, labeled orphan, it's a label that you do not want to associate with. And so for many people, they could do without actually being labeled. And so unfortunately, like some of us, having to be a child parent, obviously I have to wake up in the morning, take care of my younger sisters, and there's very little attention that I actually pay about my outlook. And so even though it was my best at that point in time, people out there that could see that, oh no, hana haha kama sentle, if there was a parent, why the parent didn't look at that much more nicely, right? And so now you realize that there's stigma out there about offense, about this and that, and it's a label that I never wanted to associate with. And I believe that anybody else who actually have had an experience like the one that I had, they really do not want to be labeled as offense and all of that. And so I'm OCD.
Okay, tell us a bit more. Tell us a bit more.
Sorry, I'm OCD, and so cleanliness naturally is something that I'm inclined to. And so I just learned how to be thorough in my outlook and all of that. I wanted people to not tell the difference between someone who has a parent and someone who doesn't have a parent. And so with that, I learned to just basically take a look into myself, pay a little bit more attention to what I was wearing, to how I was looking, and all of that. Until at a point in time, actually, unless if you knew me personally, a lot of people actually couldn't even tell whether I had parents or not. Some actually thought that I had, you know, flamboyant parents who were spoiling me and all of that. Why? Because I'd get in a shop and go for something that I know that when I'm wearing it, it sparks me up. Wow. Colors like white, like blue, you know, colors that basically speak to me, yellow and all of that. Okay. And so in that, I then it just sort of amplified my passion for branding. And so I like it when people are confident about themselves and all of that. And physical appearance has a very huge role to play in building and in boosting one's confidence. Yes. And so now I help both corporates and individuals to basically amplify their, you know, their confidence. Yes. And to use the same to, you know, to contribute towards, you know, their career development, towards, you know, growing both professionally and individually. But also, you know, the old deal when people say when you look good, you feel good, and when you feel good, you do good. So I also happen to really do good when I'm in my element, like, yeah, yes, and all of that. So then I set up this company. I rebranded basically from just doing normal branding like what all other companies out there are doing, like your branding packages and all of that. And then I looked deeper into value chains within branding. And so I realized that we're not paying attention into the consultancy aspect of it. Like, of course, you have a logo, but having a logo, having a brand manual, how are you going to make sure that you know, everyone else in terms of culture, in terms of the toning of the company, in terms of, you know, the people that you're working with, that they are also working towards achieving what your mandate is and what your brand manual basically speaks to. And so what I decided to do was just to zoom in into that that niche market where I just advise companies on corporate image management, how to manage their image, you know, and then we also offer, you know, executive coaching where we basically help, you know, your senior managers or whatever level management basically in the organization. We help them to basically, you know, grow both as an organization and so much so also as individuals. So that is the concept. I mean, that's the holistic aspect that we look into when we are doing our consultations. There is something that people always ask me to say, how do you differentiate Shamil Agosi from any other image consultancy out there? What I do, yeah, right? What we do at SquareGate Holdings is that we basically do conduct assessments before we onboard clientele. And so what we do here is we find out what are your needs, where you are in terms of your brand. Are you happy with it? Yes. What are the elements that you're not happy with it and all of that? And then from there we work on the weaknesses. Though I don't really believe in somebody might talk to SWOT analysis and all of that, but we map all of those, we map your needs, and then from there we just realize some of the critical points that are missing. Wow. And we bring on board those missing links within your brand. It could be an attitude that people, maybe they have a very negative perception about you, even so much so when you're trying so hard to be the good person, to, you know, to be you around people. Yes. There is, I don't know if you've encountered this, but there's times when, you know, you meet someone for the first time and they just don't like you. They're like, this person, you know, and all of that. Yes, we shape perceptions. Yes. At SquareGate Holdings, we shape perceptions. Wow. We shape shape, those first impressions to make sure that they actually, benefit you, because they can benefit you. And I mean, they've benefited me in so many instances. And then from there, we just make sure that your corporate brand, your personal brand, all of it actually speak towards, building and amplifying, the person that you want to become, or the company that, you envisage in the long run to see. Yeah.
Wow. Definitely quite a lengthy description, and that shows that you're really passionate about what it is that you do.
I really am.
A few things that I picked up from there was that you took a supposedly negative situation and then you built something upon that.
Truly.
So let's see how we can take negative situations and try and create positive outcomes from them. And then you did mention that you shape perceptions.
Absolutely.
I like that. You shape perceptions, because perception is a very, very big thing.
Very important.
You did also say that there are things that you deal with outside of just branding, such as attitudes. Perhaps if I'm your client and it's my attitude that might be supposedly rotten, you can work on that.
We work on those. We work on those. And this is why it's very, very important. I mean, you can be a man in a suit 24/7. You can be a very respectable brand. But if, the experience that people, could be your clientele, it could be your people who are within your sphere of influence. If they do not see the projection of that positive imagery from you, if your attitude is this way but your career is this way, one way or the other, it's definitely going to pull you down. People will not trust you. And remember that confidence is defined as an ultimate trust in oneself, but also perceptions equally. They shape whether someone is confident with your service offering or the value that you envisage to give to the next person. And so it's very, very important for you to make sure that, your entire being speaks to the person that you want to become, or that the entire company speaks to what, the toning around the company. It could be the people that you've employed, your first, your frontline people and all of that. It could be your management and all of that. If anything goes wrong, people don't see an individual in that, they see the company in essence. So, say, for example, Shamil Agosi is seen tomorrow doing something that community sort of like classifies as somewhat wrong and all of that. They're not going to say, oh, Rebone Shamili as an individual doing this. They're going to be writing and dragging on social media that they're going to be identifying me as the company. And so now you can imagine the impact, the gross impact that has, in terms of, just bringing out the corporate image and all of that. And also just for matters of pride. I mean, we all want to work for a company that is very reputable. We want to work with people who are very reputable, people who are good, people who have very positive perceptions, and people with very positive energy around them. And so when that is missing, I guess that's where Square Gate Holdings comes on board.
Square Gate Holdings.
Yes.
Passionate about what you do. You shape perceptions, work on attitudes. Wow, that's quite a commendable thing there. Let me remind our viewers at home that we are live. Please comment in the comment section. Unfortunately, today we won't be able to take calls, but do comment and we see how we can address whatever issues that you have. Today we're speaking to Shamil Tumisang Agosi, an image consultant, which I think you've gathered by now, an astute one at that. And then she's also an activist. We'll get a bit more into that. And lastly, she's an entrepreneur in her own right. So we'll talk also about the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which she's very well versed with. So right now we already actually have a comment. It says here, Peter Oludare says, hello guys, I'm watching it all the way from Ivory Coast in West Africa. Great show so far, from Botswana to the world. Wow. Great show so far. I would like to know if there are any French subtitles or translation for the show, Big Budget Business, to assist French-speaking youth. Wow, this is very inspiring. Thank you so much for this comment, because this is definitely something we will want to incorporate. Pour nos amis français, francophones, malheureusement maintenant, il n'y a pas de traduction en français, mais on va essayer d'intégrer ça dans notre programme. Je pense que c'est trop important et merci beaucoup. On va essayer. Thank you so much for that. From
Merci.
Botswana to West Africa. Wow,
Right.
lovely. And thank you for being the guest. I
Thank
think
you.
you saw the poster and was like, I need to be on this.
Right.
Thank you so much, Peter
Yes.
Oludare. Talk to us now about youth activism. You've represented Botswana on multiple continental and regional forums. How
Yes.
did this passion for being an activist start? And tell us about your youth development journey.
Truly. And so for me, I guess it's all really based on my background as a side. Growing up, I had to make sure that I became the answer that I needed the most when I grew up.
Wow.
When I grew up, I was looking for a role model, and around me there was none. And I was looking for someone who could inspire me. I wanted to be a president of the world, however much that meant at that age, at 13 years old and all of that. But my passion for this, began funny in church.
Oh,
Yeah?
wonderful,
Yes, for just passion for service. It began in church where I led a congregation of young people. I think I had about 200 or so congregants on a weekly basis and all of that. And then so the transition from that basically was, let me amplify this now to communities. And so I started doing talks in schools and all of that. I remember on a good day, I saw a post that there was a small business forum in South Africa, small business expo that was happening in South Africa. And so I self-funded myself, went to South Africa. I wasn't sent in. I got in there and just with the mission just to go and sell my branding company. And then when I got there, I saw stalls for SADC, I saw stalls for AU and all of that. And remember in schools, what I was doing is I was just looking at opportunities across board, like opportunities in SADC, opportunities in African Union, opportunities in the country and all of that. And I was just taking those opportunities and channeling them to young people to say, when you grow up, you can actually be an AU commissioner.
Yes.
And when you're 13 years old, you're like, what is an AU commissioner? I want to be that.
Yes.
What is, a director, infrastructure? What is director this, organ and all of that? You don't have an idea of any of this, about protocols and all of that. And so my idea was to just take this and channel them to young people for them to aspire to be something much bigger than what they are seeing in their current circumstances. And so I went to South Africa, saw the stores, went to the SADC one, and they told me that they had it's a SADC integration meeting conference that was happening in Eswatini at the time. It was called Swaziland, and so I self-sponsored spontaneous march, and very dangerous. Wow. I went to Swaziland. I think I had $1,000 on my pockets. Wow. Got there, had no reservations for hotels, nothing. The taxi man actually had to divert and take me there. This speaks to the fact that, when you set your mind on it, there's help on the way. Don't even think about what it
take that first step. Yes,
take the first step.
Risk.
The rest
Wonderful.
will follow.
Wonderful.
And so I got there, and then I met the AU commissioner to Southern Africa, who told me that they are willing to incorporate young people, but they don't know how. And I told them, well, I've been doing activism, and he said, can you go back and structure that? I went back, I structured, but not only to structure it, I grew it. I told him, I said, this is Southern Africa AU. So I was like, let me just go ahead and just make sure that young people also in different countries are represented. And so I went on social media. When you go back to the post of 2016 or something like that, I made a call to young people. I was looking for pragmatic young leaders who can come and come and join this. And so at the time it was African Union University Club, and then we later changed it, of course, with the committee and the members. We changed it to African Union Youth Club, an organization that looked at making sure that young people are part and parcel of Africa's development agenda. Yes. And so that is how we landed in the policy landscape. That is how then AUIC became one of the recognized ICPs at the SADC Secretariat. That is how Shamil Agosi got to be able to represent young people during ministerial meetings like the Ministers of Energy when they met in 2018. That is how basically I got to be in several committees and serve in a board of SADC Energy Entrepreneurship Facility that is currently hosted by by Irene and Sakri. And so all of this basically came because I started something that at the time, if you asked me, did you see it coming? I would tell you, man, I had no idea what I was doing.
Wow.
But it started taking shape as I was doing it. It started taking shape as more members, as more young people were inquisitive, as more young people were benefiting from it. That's where now I'm like, so benefited from it. AU now can ask us for recommendations for young people to join their youth volunteer corps and all of that. And I'm like, organizations can come to Shamil Agosi and ask for recommendations for young people in different sectors.
Imagine.
And don't even think twice, because they know that if
trust.
it's Shamil Agosi, if it's African Union Youth Club, then it's quality. And so that is the leverage that we basically did. We developed a database around young people, and we used this database to give it to different stakeholders. We say to them, oh no, they say to us, we need young people in this sector. And we send a mailing list to these young people. We say, if you are interested, like for example, tomorrow, the SADC Secretariat is hosting an Internet Exchange Point peering forum. And if you are a young person in engineering space, a network, and all of that space, then you would know this is for you.
Exactly.
And so we look up for these young people. We tell them this is an opportunity, high level much, because it's really not accessible, and there's something that we're trying to work on really at grassroots level to make sure that that information that we maintain what they call in economics perfect information. The information that is there at a high level, at member states level, at African Union or at SADC level, it has to be the same information that is channeled to young people for beneficiation's sake and also for impact's sake. And so that's basically the role that we've been playing. And so youth activism, yes, both at grassroots and both at very high level policy level. Yes.
Wonderful, Shamil.
Yes.
A very inspiring story. I'm sure there's someone out there who aspires to become the UN Secretary General or something one day.
Truly.
And they will definitely be inspired by what you said there. You did say that you self-funded because you believed in what you wanted to become and what you wanted to create.
Yes.
So you also said that you were looking for role models but couldn't find them and decided to become
I should be a role model.
that role model for yourself.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And then also what I like about what you're doing is that you're saying we want the high level aspects of policy making to also be accessible at grassroots level, so that we understand from the grassroots level what exactly the decisions that are being made at the top, so that one day we don't come back and complain and say, no, but these decisions were made at a higher level and we were not consulted. So let me commend you for what you've been doing over there.
Thank you.
We have another comment here from Mpho over Kama Toteng. Hello, the Mpho. She, I take it she says, hey Shamil, how do I get to know more or become a part of the forum tomorrow? Is it virtual?
Yes. Okay. So the Internet Exchange Points Peering Forum, it's a meeting basically of member states that come in to talk about internet exchange points, in Southern Africa and all of that. Yes, it is virtual. And I think what you can do is send me an email to shamilagosi@gmail.com, or just drop me a text at +267 7654 3228, where basically I can share with you some credentials. And of course, I would appreciate your bio as well.
Yes. No, I take it you'll also repeat those as the show goes by. Thank you so much for that.
Yes, truly.
Now, you recently organized an international conference that was centered on the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Now, for someone who's sitting there out there at home, this is sort of the buzzword of the day. There's a lot of talk about this African free trade. What exactly is this, and what is its implication for me as a young business person or for me as a young professional?
So the abbreviated ACFTA, that is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area or / agreement, is a framework that basically our heads of states within the African members of the African Union basically decided that, you know, it was high time that they started trading with each other.
Yes.
And so in this accordance, I would like to take you back to the you know, Agenda 2063, which is envisaged as the Africa we want. It's the future of Africa, basically, like the kind of Africa that we aspire to see. It has 7 aspirations in there, and within those aspirations, they have 10-year implementation plans.
Right.
And so within the 10-year implementation plans, then the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement is part of those, is one of those implementing plans. And so now, what are we saying about the ACFTA? It's basically giving access to African traders to now start trading with each other.
Yes.
So we are saying we are removing, you know, trade barriers. We are saying that we are making it much more accessible for you to conduct financial transactions from Botswana to Ghana to Ethiopia, you know, to Nigeria, to Ivory Coast, yes. And we are saying that you know, the trade, you know, the protocol of trade in goods, it classifies, you know, it looks at, you know, value chains across Africa. It looks at goods that Africa is very good at producing and manufacturing. And we are saying this are the member states have agreed to say, Botswana, these are the goods that Botswana is going to be trading under this agreement and all of that. And then each one of the member states actually has their own trade in goods, you know, concessions. They know like which goods actually qualify under that.
Just to interject there, sorry. Let me just... You did say that it speaks to goods. Talk to us, for those young people who are in service sectors, does it cater for them too?
Yes. Fortunately, not fortunately, but very thoughtful of the contributors actually. There is also a protocol in trade in services. And so that is where now, you know, issues of your skill sets, for example, if you are a doctor or you are a neurologist or something of that sort, we know Africa doesn't have many of those. And so I believe that, you know, some of those services are some of those that are actually traded under the agreement. And this is why it's very, very important, this agreement. It says this protocol is very important because when you, under the trade in services, for example, if you have certification, for example, you are a lawyer in Botswana, vetted under the courts in Botswana, it means that you don't need extra certification to go and set up your practice in Ghana or Ivory Coast.
What an advantage.
Or, you know,
you see, it's a lot of these, a lot of the red tape. We're going to see a lot of that being removed by this agreement, right? In terms of the barriers of us being able to take our services internationally from Botswana to the world. Wonderful.
Yes. But there's also protection around that. I know there's a lot of questions around, okay, how is Botswana going to make sure that its own, like our own people here in Botswana are cushioned against all of this?
Very good question.
That is where now you see, you know, each country, even though there is the ACFTA, the agreement, the protocols and all of that, we have our own action. I mean, we have our own acts that have to be enacted in order to make sure that there's a level of protection for its own people. And then also, you need certification, for example, for you to trade under this agreement. You have to, you know, you can go to the Ministry of Trade to find out that and all of that. Unfortunately, our country has not yet ratified. So we are working, I believe that they're working on that. I heard a word, a little, you know, whisper word somewhere, saying, you know, saying that we're considering doing that this coming month of June. And so we are very hopeful, we're very keen to see the government of Botswana actually doing that, because in as much as, yes, we are still lagging behind in some of those things, I always want to speak to the opportunity cost around that. If your country have not yet signed or ratified for that, it means that the citizenry will be playing catch up. We are not able to move on to actually now start trading because, hey, we have not agreed to certain things. We're still looking into them. And then you look at countries like Ghana, you look at countries like Nigeria, countries like South Africa, they're already implementation. They're far ahead. And so by the time our traders now are getting into the agreement, they're even getting aware of it, then it means that we'll be a little bit behind in that regard. And so that is why we need to maintain perfect information information.
Yes.
And for me, I look at it in the sense that, you know, it sort of like gives us leverage in terms of demanding accountability, which is very important. I mean, if we're saying that we've rectified for the ACFTA or the African Youth Charter, which is my favorite topic, and then you would find that, you know, if the citizenry doesn't know about it, so it means you don't know the opportunity cost of it, you don't even know what you are losing out in there, you don't know what you will benefit, what you would potentially benefit from it, and so it means you can't even hold anyone accountable because you don't know that such a thing exists. But if you know, you will ask.
Yes.
Yeah,
Certainly.
if you know, you would ask.
You know, I like that you said that. You see, knowledge. As young people in business out there, here's something that can open up so many doors for you. So let's try and see how we can become more knowledgeable about this African Continental Free Trade Area or agreement and see how we can slot ourselves in there for advantage. Imagine the immense possibilities that this can yield for you and your business, because essentially your markets are now extended.
Truly, you don't have to trade in Botswana alone. It means that when you're thinking, even if you are at the ideation stage now or prototyping stage of your project, think Africa.
Yes.
Think how your product will speak to the needs of people in Chad, for example. Think how your product will actually basically, you know, sit in nicely in the market of Nigeria or Ivory Coast or Ghana or Kenya or Tanzania, for example. So it's high time now that we started now changing the narrative to say, okay, we're not only confined to the borders of Botswana. Now, whatever you're doing, think global. Think Africa.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Once again, we are live. Please keep your comments and questions coming. If you have any questions with respect to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, please feel free to ask, or perhaps even where you can find more information. I'm sure our guest, Shamil Tumisang Agosi, can let you know. We've also spoken about youth activism. Maybe you're a young person interested in issues such as relating to SADC, regional bodies, international agencies. This is the person to ask your questions to. And also image consultancy.
Yes.
I don't think I have to say much in that respect.
So many hats.
So many hats. Wow.
Yes.
It's a commendable thing that you're doing there.
Yes.
Perhaps having watched you for a while, you seem to be very passionate about youth and women, economic empowerment. Speak to us about that.
Yes, and so with youth, you know, because we are the marginalized majority of us, but also we consist of the bulge of our populations anywhere, basically anywhere in the world. And so you realize that, you know, the structures, be it in either in governance or even in the private sector and all of that, that are usually skewed towards people who, you know, are much older and all of that. I mean, you see this by a new company that just started and they're telling you they need, you know, or a big company, for example, telling you they need someone who is 10 years experience, who has 10 years experience in what, and you have the qualification, You just came back, you invested in that, you know it better, and all of that, and they say they need 10 years. Where are you going to get the 10 years experience, honestly? Question. And so I'm more about driving pragmatic, you know, and youth policies. And policies that basically speaks to the needs of young people. We are marginalized in so many instances. Like you go to the villages right now, it's majority of young people. These ones who are unemployed and all of that, they end up now retiring to go back to the village. And when they get to the village, there's not much economic activity happening there. And so now they are forced to actually, you know, that some of them used for very various reasons, you know, for very various purposes. In other countries, when you look into other countries, they take advantage of these young people who are desperate, and you know they make them, you know, armory. They take them to wars. They use them as political tools because of the, you know, because of the desperation and all of that. Imagine being told to carry a gun and go and kill masses of people just because you need $100 at the end of that task. You know, for a minimum, and you look at the lives that you're losing and all of that. So it's high time that we now started focusing on, you know, truly focusing, not in principle, but even in action, focusing on empowering young people to become better people and for them to take up spaces for leadership and development. Very, very important. And for the aspect of women, also, I mean, we live in patriarchal societies and all of that. Opportunities are more inclined to benefit more men than women. Like, for example, talking about the ACFTA, you're running a company as a woman, a young woman could be, and you want to scale to Ghana. It means you have to go and set up in Ghana. If you are married, if your husband does not support that, he will say no. And this means that you're not going to be able to go because he says the children. And then in other instances, just for you to get access to financing, like for example, you go to any local bank or international bank and all of that, you need a man's signature as a woman to approve whether, you know, you want the money or you don't. If he does not agree to that, it means that you're not going to be getting that financing. But also, even so much so, a lot of women are actually, studies show that we are the ones that are playing a huge role in driving the informal sector. I mean, you can see this by the ladies who are doing cross-border tradings, who are selling clothes, going to South Africa, going to Nigeria, taking in, it could be food items, it could be bales and all of that. They're crossing borders with those. They're the ones who are doing cross-border trade, majority of the cross-border trade. And they come home and they set up their small stores and they, you know, take care of their families from that. They sustain their families from the little that they're getting.
And not
then
just
others,
their families,
not
the
just
economies
the
too,
economy.
because remember,
Yes,
the informal sector plays a major role. Yes.
Absolutely. And you see, these are people that needs to be built capacity. These are people that needs to be organized. Like, for example, if you're making 800 Pula a day, it means that at the end of the month, you've made a substantial amount. Are you banking? Are you taught on issues of investment and all of that? What can you do? Yeah.
Yes,
what can you do to actually move beyond the 800 Pula a day that you are getting and all of that? And only if this information was actually channeled to these people, taught financial management, taught, you know, issues of marketing, taught how to best structure their companies and all of that. It could be best. It could be for a greater good, not only for the economy, like you said, but also even for, you know, for improving livelihoods, living standards. And
wonderful.
All. Yes.
You know, so our producers have just shared a link. If you would like to join us and call in, please just click on that link and ask your questions. Do keep your comments coming also. I see Mpo Overcomer thing. I think she was answered because she said here, and we have to domesticate as well. We really need to catch up.
Yes.
And as young people, I think we're in an age where information is so accessible, quickly available. Let's try and equip ourselves with the knowledge with respect to those things that we want to involve ourselves in. Wonderful. So we did speak about youth and women economic empowerment, but I just wanted to ask you on a personal note, with the many hats that you wear, what would you say you're most passionate about?
Okay, this is the part where I have to actually scratch my head, cause I'm inclined to serve.
Wow, I like that.
I'm inclined to serve. The things that speak most to my heart is seeing someone else benefit, seeing someone else's life change because I did something. And, you know, something, since we are personal, I did mention that I'm OCD, but equally so, I'm also an empath, a very high empath. And I don't know if it's because of the emotional turmoil that but I've always been, even before then, like, you know, just off the chat kind of conversation. My younger sister and I, we used to fight a lot when we were pretty young. So I used to get the beating for it. You know why? Because I couldn't stomach the thought of just doing that to her. And so never been a violent person, never been, but highly competitive, which is actually kind of like a downfall to it. And so now you know, I'm inclined to just helping people. I'm inclined to anything that, you know, will impact or will make someone else's life better. That's what I do, which is why service, yes, very much. But also image consultancy, I'm very passionate about that because I do not leave my house until I've affirmed to myself that, yes, you're good.
Wonderful.
And so, yeah.
You know, wonderful. You know, Shamil, we could spend a lot of time. Thank you so much for being here. Before I thank you, share once again how you can be contacted.
Yes. So you can contact me at +267 7654 3228. It's also on WhatsApp or you can just drop me an email at shamilagosi@gmail.com. I'm also on social media platforms. You can find me at Shamil Agosi on Facebook. I have a page, a personal page and a professional page. And then I'm also on Twitter, Shamil Agosi, or LinkedIn, Shamil Agosi. Anyway, basically, you will look for Shamil Agosi and you will find me.
Wow, thank you so much. Let me thank you for taking the time to come and teach us a bit more about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and yourself. I'm sure your story has inspired a lot of young people out there.
Thank you very much for having me. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely. The pleasure was ours. And once again, Mompuliki Mowana here says, great to join the conversation. Kaene Jonkane Disepo says, Shamil for the win. Such an incredible young leader. Botswana, you must not rest on this one.
Oh.
And we feel the same way too.
Thank you. Thank you.
So today we'll jump straight into our 2-minute tip. Now, a lot of us want to become young leaders, but we don't know exactly which skills to hone or sharpen for leadership. So according to the Tony Elumelu Foundation, there are 5 aspects that you might want to develop if you want to become a more astute leader. Number 1, attention to results. Become a results-orientated person to ensure that you focus on your key performance indicators and critical success factors. Number 2, make sure that you are accountable. Make sure that you are responsible for and answerable for all the decisions that you take as a leader. Number 3, commitment. Of course, there will be interim ups and downs, but please maintain that commitment towards achieving your intended goal. And then number 4, you need to have constructive criticism skills. Of course, those people that you lead will make mistakes from time to time, but when you give them feedback as a leader, ensure that it's feedback that will build them and not have them in a negative state of mind. And lastly, develop your trustworthiness. You see, becoming a leader involves the cultivation, the development and sustenance of relationships, and relationships can only be based on trust. They need to be founded on trust. So once again, 5 things that you might want to look into as a young leader. Number 1, attention to results. Number 2, accountability. Number 3, commitment. 4, constructive criticism skills. And lastly, trust. It's been a lovely show. Thank you so much for your time and for the engagement around here in Botswana and all the way from Ivory Coast. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. From me, Big Budget, and the team that makes it happen, Black Network, Mowana Pictures, it's good night and God bless. And never forget that you were born for so much more.